Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bill again. So, tonight we've got a special guest. He's the guy running against Mitch McConnell. You want to introduce yourself? I lost the feed here.
All right. My name's Mike Broihier, and I'm obviously Democrat running against Mitch McConnell here in Kentucky. And I'm a retired Marine, Lieutenant Colonel, and I'm married to a retired Marine. And right now let's see, I've done a lot of things. Started off as an artilleryman in the Marine Corps, served as a provisional rifle commander and rifle company commander in Mogadishu, 92, 93 during the Somali Civil War, and served as the plans in Korea for Marine Forces Korea, 2002. I'm also an educator, taught for 3 years at University of California, and also I'm a substitute teacher here in Lincoln County, Kentucky. And I'm a farmer. My wife Lynn and I have been farming here in Kentucky for the last 15 years. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. Okay, so the one thing you're not going to have to do with this audience is convince anybody that McConnell needs to go. So what? Tell us about your platform. Where do you differ?
From whom?
From McConnell. Let's start there.
Okay. Well, how about on everything? Other than oxygen is good, but that's probably even debatable. But the basis of my platform, man, is this: is that I believe in economic and social justice for all, and really. The founding fathers nailed it when they talked about the fact that we are all equal in the eyes of the law. We all deserve equal protection under the law, and that the bounty of our land, our resources, our wealth, our energy is something that we all hold in common. And that's been the basis of my platform from the very, very beginning. I don't know if the Senate Majority Leader actually believes in that. I think he's a guy who believes in accumulating power and wealth, and he doesn't give a crap about the Constitution, about the Republic, or about the people of Kentucky.
I can definitely see where you're coming from on that one. When you say economic justice, what does that mean for the people of Kentucky?
Well, man, when I started out, I viewed economic and social justice as like two discrete items. And but the more I thought about it and talked about it, I guess I kind of convinced myself that they're so tightly linked that they're kind of the same thing. But let's talk about economic justice. So Kentucky and probably the 8 Appalachian coal producing states. I mean, we built the great cities of America. We built the railroads, we built the cities, we built the bridges, and we've been left holding the bag economically and environmentally too. And I don't know if your fans are interested in environmental issues, but I mean, literally, we are holding the bag on 200 years of first it was timber and then it was coal, and now the coal's running out. It is sayonara. And I would not want to be a Republican politician going out to coal country, going to Harlan County, and saying, "Nah, we're bringing coal back, boys," because that's not go over very well with people out in Eastern Kentucky. And we've got coal fields out in Western Kentucky too.
So the idea of from those of us outside, or those of us who used to live in Kentucky, the idea of bringing social justice to Kentucky seems like an uphill battle. What is your what's your plan? How are we going to do this? I definitely think you've got the blue collar workers. You have their attention, but that phrase social justice carries a lot of baggage there. So what's the plan? How are you going to market it?
Well, I don't know if it's marketing. I'd spent, we've been farming here for 15 years, but it takes a little bit of capital to farm. And so we've done work off the farm, obviously, And for 2 years, I was a reporter, and 3 years, I was an editor of a rural newspaper, the third oldest here in Kentucky. And you learn how to communicate your message to people. And I am who I am. And so, kind of, as a a little scary on the outside, but kind of squishy on the inside. I had to learn how to communicate to folks who would read my weekly editorials, and I learned that you got to be right, but not like self-righteous, and you got to be patient, and you can't make people feel dumb for believing what they believe. And so when I talk about social justice, I mean it's as simple as things as looking at, like, okay, we've turned prisons into an industry in Kentucky, right? And in the last 7 years, we've increased the number of women in prison by 300%. You know, those are families without moms or without sisters or daughters, and primarily African American, and for nonviolent crimes. It's because we have got the term prison and industry in the same sentence. Just like education and industry shouldn't be in the same sentence. You know, prisons prisons are for prisons, not for making profits for people. But we've created a system here in Kentucky where a lot of people are making a lot of money off of our prisons, and we're more than happy to provide them clients to fill those prisons up to max capacity. A lot of folks I run into say, "Well, I'm fiscally conservative, right?" And so it's like, all right, you're fiscally conservative. Explain to me why someone who's committed a nonviolent crime, maybe drug possession or possession of marijuana, why it's worth the taxpayers $124 a day to take that person away from their family and their home. We're talking $25,000 a year to keep them locked up, and give them no reentry into what, whether it's in rural Kentucky or urban Kentucky, give them no smooth entry back into society, where they're just going to reoffend and send them right back to prison. So we've created this self-licking ice cream cone. That's just one example, of the prison system. And just ridiculous things like just today here in Kentucky, the state Senate passed a bill cutting all the money to public libraries, right? All right. It may not be a big deal for people, but if you live in the country, I mean, the public library is your internet service provider, or McDonald's is your internet service provider. And so here we are looking at the coronavirus, and they're talking about shutting down the schools and the kids needing to do distance learning to continue on their school year. Perfect time to cut the school budget. Those are social justice issues. And whether you live in Louisville or Lexington, or you live out here in Chicken Bristle, it hurts. And that's what I talk about when I'm talking about social justice.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So McConnell has money. He's got backers. He's got a lot of people. Well, not people. He's got a lot of companies throwing cash his way. How are you going to offset that?
Well, it's by talking. I mean, what I tell people is that, listen, they say, how are you going to beat McConnell? I say, you beat him with the unrelenting truth, right? The fact so he's been Senate Majority Leader for a long time. He's been in Congress. He and I entered federal service the same year, right? One of us is right, 1984. One of us is a multi-millionaire, and the other is a freaking asparagus farmer in Lincoln County, Kentucky. But you know what, man? I made the right choice because I could sleep at night. But how do you beat him? So you beat him with the unrelenting truth. And I was talking to a group of women Democrats out in Estill County, which is in eastern Kentucky, and they asked the same question. And so, okay, so we're seventh in diabetes. We have the fifth worst economy in the United States. We're third worst in cancer deaths, and we are like number one in child abuse and number one in child homelessness, right here in Kentucky. And so when people say, "Oh, how do you give the prestige of having the Senate Majority Leader?" He hasn't done nothing for Kentucky. Go out and ask that question in the coal fields and see what people say. And that's how you beat him. Now, sadly, 70 days to the primary, and I got a lot of ground to cover. but we've been hitting it hard since July, and we can close the deal for the May 19th primary.
Okay, so to address anything that's going to separate you from McConnell that may surprise people, separate you from anybody else.
All right, you're breaking up a little bit, dude, but I think what you said was, is there things that are going to separate me from McConnell?
Yeah. Any
Okay.
hot button issues on the more controversial stuff?
Right, the controversial stuff. Yeah, obviously. I mean, there are some hot button issues. Women's reproductive rights, big issue in Kentucky. And also, and I got to tell you, judging by that 303 shirt, you're not going to like this one. But, you know, I am a firm backer in universal background checks and, you know, some of the red flag laws that are included in the Violence Against Women Act. Those are kind of considered to be hot button issues here in Kentucky. But I got to tell you what I found, man. When you tell people what you believe up front and you don't try to triangulate or you know, give them some kind of long shaggy dog story about your upbringing, they say, well, I disagree with you, but at least you didn't lie to me. Now, I know that's a low bar, politician, you know, but I got to tell you, like, I was talking to some farmers up in northern Kentucky, and the guy, one of the guys asked me if I was pro-choice, you know, or pro-life, and I told him pro-choice, and he kind of slapped his hand down. He said, well, I disagree with you, but at least you didn't lie to me, so you got my vote. And I'm like, all right, there's one, you know?
Right.
But I think that being honest with people and, you know, even if they disagree with you, they're like, at least this guy's not bullshitting me, you know? I don't know how you feel about that. But.
No, as far as the Violence of Women Act, I think that there's not just do we need to have some motion there. We've got to close the whole, well, you were charged with domestic violence, but it got knocked back to assault, so you don't lose your rights. I think we need to address that too. That's a huge, huge loophole that always gets ignored. And domestic violence is a really, really good indicator of future violence. So no, I'm definitely pro Second Amendment, but I'm also not insane. I would like, I'd like people not to get killed, you know. But yeah, I can see being pro-choice being a tough sell in Kentucky too. But again, I don't know that with the climate there right now, I don't know that that's going to be a make or break issue.
Well, the other thing that, you know, McConnell's good at is parachuting in some pork. I mean, you know, his wife is the Secretary of Transportation. So, you know, dropping off $60 million for a bypass is no problem. And it's happening all over Kentucky. You want that bridge built now? You know, you need that bypass. Here you go. Here's $15 million, $20 million, up to $60 million. But what people, and you got to keep communicating this carefully, is that it's not his money. You know, it's our money that he's buying your votes back. You know, he's buying your votes with your money. So I think people are onto his game. You know, there's been a couple busts. You know, for example, hemp. He got a great deal of credit for ramming through the legalization of hemp, but it's completely backfired here. I mean, I can line up farmers for you who've got a barn full of hemp they can't sell, and the only people, you know, I said holding the bag before, the only on the hook for this are the farmers. The processing companies and their investors, they all got their money, and you've got farmers literally with barns full of unsold hemp, and they're going to lose their homes because hemp's a non-traditional crop. You can't get a typical farm loan for it or farm insurance for it, and if no one buys your hemp, you eat it. And so people mortgage their homes, and we're talking about like salt of the earth Kentuckians. Farmers have mortgaged their homes to go into this new venture, and they're out. I mean, there's no next year for them. It's not like soybean or corn or cows or something. they're done. And so, as a farmer myself, I can talk to them. I understand. I've been through the process, and I think that I think that I can hit home with them and point out the fact that they're just being used. So it's a long road, but I'm a patient guy.
All right. All right. In Kentucky, I guess another hot button issue would be, I mean, it, the thing is, it's a decided issue, really, but it's still something that gets talked about. Is gay marriage? Is that something you want to wade in on, or are you just going to stand with what the law has decided?
Well, I was way ahead of the law. I was a newspaper editor back in 2010. If this is a long, boring story, man, just give me the high sign and I'll shut up. But all right, so so it was back when they were reauthorizing Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And so I'm editor of a rural weekly newspaper, and I wrote an editorial called Don't Ask, Don't Tell, Don't Care. And basically based on my 40 plus years of my wife and my experience, knowing plenty of gay people in the military. And I said, listen, no one in the military gives a damn about this. The only people who really care about who you, yeah, okay. The only people who care who you sleep with are preachers and politicians. And they only care because they think you care. So anyways, I published this editorial, and this is a very, very small, very Baptist-y kind of community. And I get a call the next morning. Someone wants to talk to my editorial, and the lady says she's a self-identifies as a little old church lady from Crab Orchard, Kentucky, wants to talk about my editorial. But here's what she said, man. She said, I read your editorial, I thought about it, and I prayed about it, and I realized you're right. And if you're okay, I'm going to copy it and take it to Bible study on Monday and tell everybody that you're right. And I counted that as a big victory. And it kind of reinforced the fact that, listen, you just got to talk honestly and with a sense of fairness to people of Kentucky, and they'll come on board. They have keen sense of fairness here, common sense. May not have degrees and things like that, but they pride themselves on being fair and understanding other people. And so, yeah, I got to tell you, man, I don't care who someone sleeps with. I don't care who they love. And you know what? Everybody, I think these days knows somebody who, is probably gay, lesbian, transgender, or whatever. And, I got to tell you, I don't want to, I'm not going to talk too in detail specifics, but as substitute teacher, I had this past year, I had my first 2 trans students, one at kindergarten. And, so here I am leading these kids off to the bathroom because, kindergarten, you go about 20 times a day. But, and the only person worried about what was going to happen next was me, because the kids just sorted themselves out, went in the bathroom, and no one said nothing. And they just went back to being themselves. And my fear of telling that story is that some self-righteous prick is going to hunt down that poor kid and run him out of the school. And so what? I don't care. And I think that overwhelmingly, ultimately, everyone knows somebody who has a different orientation than them. And other than some few hateful people out there, this is something that's kind of gone past the point of being important.
I get. All right. So here's a question I always ask everybody who comes on the show. If there's all these people watching, tell them how to change the world. One thing that an individual can do in their community to make the world a better place. What do you got?
Don't be a dick.
Fair enough.
No. Seriously, I'll tell you one thing about farming, like the way we farm, you get a lot of time to reflect. There's an awful lot of time walking around picking crops by hand, like 3, 4, 5 hours a day. And the worst thing you can do is have a real destructive internal dialogue going on. It's the when you're in the shower, you're reviewing the argument, you're going, yeah, I should have said this, but the just turning off that internal dialogue for a while and opening your ears and opening your minds and saying, all right, where's this person coming from? And, it just, I mean, I guess you're asking me to reflect back on 58 years of what I've learned in my life about getting along. But, here's one thing is that at my age, um, people take a look at you and say, wow, you plus years in the military, combat veteran, blah, blah, blah. They expect me to be like real hard and brutal. But I got to tell you, man, as time's gone on, my mind's opened up and I've gotten, able to listen to people and really appreciate them. Just shut that noise off in my own head and listen to what people are saying. And yeah, you don't have to agree with them, but you don't have to hate them either. They're not the enemy. And so, yeah, I guess if you want to ask me how to change the world, don't be a dick.
I like it. That should actually be a campaign slogan, to be honest. uh, so I'm assuming, I don't know. I'm assuming your campaign is self-funded and through the community. Do you have any big donors lined up or anything like that?
Not a one. Not a one. All of our donations so far have been from individuals, but I'll tell you what, the lately things have actually improved quite a bit. I mean, to get started, we sold off all our excess farm equipment. We sold all the animals, emptied out the bank accounts, what little there was in there. But I've had a whole bunch of people come off Andrew Yang's campaign, and literally flooding here to Kentucky. And I told someone earlier today, last week I had 5 grown men, sleeping in my 2-bedroom farmhouse. And I had a neighbor drive a leaky old mobile home over here. I had 2 poor kids staying out there. And but it's been a real shot in the arm, and they're better at fundraising and they got a much bigger reach than I ever did. So yeah, the last 2 weeks particularly have been very, very good, but no PACs, no endorsements. We've gotten a handful of checks from companies and we mailed them right back. So all of our donations are coming right from individuals.
All right. All right. Okay. So on that note, give everybody your information. Give everybody where they can donate, where they can find out more about your platform, where they can get one of those cool shirts with the guy throwing the flowers. That's
I'm not supposed to show that.
Oh.
Is that it with the Banksy? Yeah.
Yeah.
When we initially had that show and people go, "Oh my God, is he Antifa?" It was like, "Oh, you've missed the point," but that's all right. So if anyone's interested, they can go to mikeforky.com, mikeforky.com, and there's obvious, the usual suspects donate. But my issues page, I kind of spilled my guts back when I launched back in July, and just kind of let it all hang out there. This is a one-shot deal. Like I said, no triangulation, no focus grouping. I just kind of spilled it all back then, and I'm sticking to it on the hope that at least people will appreciate honesty. So mikeforky.com, and if they care to donate, which would be awesome, Act Blue. And they can also reach us to that site if they're in Kentucky or they want to come volunteer, donate. And the last thing I'll say is, if you like the message, spread it, Facebook, Twitter, retweet this or repost this podcast if people like it or hate it. I don't know. I don't care. Go ahead and post the whole thing. And that really helps because, there's this exponential force of the internet where all you got to do is tell three friends and it just blows right up, which I'm sure you know.
All right. Is there anything else any other information you want to get out? Any other ideas you want to get across before we wrap this up?
No, Bo, but I just want to say thank you for having me, and thanks for being a great host. And this is very kind. People have got no reason, they don't owe me nothing. But I think that even the most conservative person in America can look at Mitch McConnell and say he is not good for the republic. He needs to go. He's had 35 years. He's had his turn. Time to go. And I'm the guy to beat him. So thank you so much for having me. And you're a good host, good questions, and I'll come back anytime you want.
All right. Well, that's it for this one, and we will see all y'all later.